Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the List Report. I am Ben Sugarman. With me today, I have the Trash Knight himself, Evan Ringo. Go ahead and say hi.
What up?
And we got the lovely cat herder herself, Miss Miranda. Go ahead and say hi.
Hello, hello.
Ah, perfect. All right, so since this is episode one, we're going to break it down real quick. This is going to be your one stop shop for everything ACL. With an ever growing league, there's countless chapters, lively regions, and with over 500 fighters, it's hard to keep track of this shit. I mean, back in the days when it was small, it was kind of easy, close knit, but we're expanding, and we don't want to leave anyone out. So we put together this little podcast so we can try and keep every fighter up to date in every region, what's going on, keep you entertained, and hopefully make you laugh a little. I don't know, we get kind of boring. So without further ado, let's go ahead and kick this shit off. All right, so first up, less than a week away from Eastern Nationals. Is it Eastern qualifiers? What's good?
Eastern Conference.
I can't keep track of this anymore. All right, so Miranda, for those of you for some of the new fighters that probably don't know too much about the league, you are kind of the head of admin details for most of these fights, if I'm correct.
Yeah, I think my technical title is list mistress. List mistress. I run the national conference and some regional level tournaments alongside some other key support people. We have a core logistics team, some people that focus solely on booking the venues, finding the hotel, and lining up, what the event's going to contain. I'm the one that literally herds the cats and keeps the show running on time, and fighters up next, who's on deck, who's in the hole, get out of my gate, that kind of thing.
One of
Never heard that.
Oh yeah, no, we know nothing about you screaming at 6'5" burly men and watching them cower. It's if you've never been to a national event, it is by far one of the most entertaining parts of the whole. The fighting's one thing, but Miranda makes it a whole lot funnier.
I try. Thank you.
So, since you have the list of everyone that, well, registration is still open for those of you that are listening to this and you haven't registered yet. I don't know what you're waiting for. Go ahead and register. You're making her life hell. So, go ahead. I understand we got both singles and melees for this. So, why don't you give us the early breakdown of what we got so far?
Yeah, so coming up, we've decided that all qualifying fights will be on Saturday only. We were just really concerned about light registration. We are working on getting a foothold in the southeast part of the country where we've had some lacking in leadership, which is now turning around greatly. So with that, we've got some people that are really focusing on building the teams. We booked the venue for November 9th and 10th, which is Friday and Saturday. However, we have a lot of fighters that just due to New World Cup just happening, people taking time off, not having a lot of paid leave, a lot of people are coming in on Friday. So qualifying fights are on Saturday. It is a mixed format, so it's going to be really heavy singles because we didn't fight singles at all at this last New World Cup. I've got a pretty heavy registration for the 4 disciplines: longsword, sword and shield, polearm, and sword and buckler. And then we did have a decent showing, so it looks like we'll have a solid 4 5-man teams. So we're not going to have to do round robin. We'll probably do double, maybe even triple elimination, depending on how much these guys want to fight over the course of the day. But because we do have such a heavy singles registration, we'll be focusing a lot of energy on that.
Okay, perfect. And so you said this is going to be focusing heavy on singles. And Ringo, I know you correct me if I'm wrong. You have not fought on, at least in the nationals, in the single. You've been mostly melee, correct?
I mean, I haven't fought singles nationals in like 2 years, but no, I've actually won two national tournaments, so I've been the longsword champion twice.
Okay.
But yeah, most of the time at the national tournaments, I don't fight singles.
Okay.
I and I haven't in 2 years.
Mhm. So, and I know you've done a lot of fighter breakdowns. You had a great blog series for a while where you would I mean, if you think you've sat down and watched tape, you haven't watched tape because I've read those blogs. Those things are like 5 pages of great content too. There's no filler in it. So, who are you excited about seeing in some of? Because for those of you who don't know, it's going to be Sword and Shield is going to be one. We got Polearm. We got Longsword, and I believe this is the first year that they're actually going to put a sword and buckler. That's going to be one of the major.
So that's not the. I don't think that's their. IMCF is still resistant to sword and
Okay.
buckler, from what I'm hearing.
Correct.
So there's pressure on them to get that in. But
This was based on fighter request.
Yeah.
Originally, management had just put up the 3 disciplines that's required by IMCF that people would be fighting at IMCF, but they said, the fighters were like, what about sword and buckler? And well, all right, if you want to fight it, we'll put it up. And I have huge registration for it. I have as many people. I have more people that want to fight sword and buckler than that are registered for polearm.
I mean, between the two, Ringo, I'd like to hear your take on it too, but I think the sword and buckler is a whole lot more fun to watch than sword and shield.
Yeah, I sword and buckler is one of my favorite matches.
Well, yeah.
And so correct me if I'm wrong. I've seen two kind of main fights for sword and buckler. It's either the first to 5 hits, and then there is a just straight up minute counted blows. Which of the two are going to be at Eastern in a week? I'm just going to call it qualifiers. I don't know what the fuck to call it.
Eastern Conference.
Conference. There we go.
Conference. Eastern Conference.
We'll get it.
One of these days. Slow journey.
I think it'll be determined by the people that are registered to fight the day of. A lot of times these guys, and especially the announcers, will fall back on the old school 3-point, which I thought was done away with. A lot of people, especially regional, at least the regions that I've been to their tournaments, have done away with the 3-point because it's too fast and nobody knows what's going on as far as spectator. They don't know what they're watching. So
Right.
5-point was the very minimum, and I have seen a couple of people go to timed rounds.
Okay.
We'll let them decide.
The current sort of, that I understand it, the beta rules, I guess, is what I like to call them, what we've been experimenting with and just hasn't been written down as far as I know, is it's 5 points and from the waist up. That's what we seem to find was it cuts down on a lot of really fast fighting where you just throw a shit ton of shots at the shins and then no one knows what happened.
Right.
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's personally the rules that make me like sword and buckler. So I hope that's what they are. I know that's what Jay prefers, and as he's half of management and he's there, it might go that way. But
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of always depends on what the refs want to do.
Yeah.
That's what I push for. That I know that's what a solid handful of veteran fighters push for. That's not always what gets translated via third person over the mic. So we'll try to make sure that happens.
Yep, hopefully. But as far as the melees goes, because I know, well, actually, I'm curious, Miranda, because correct me if I'm wrong. You've done SCA, but no, yes, okay,
Never
no.
been affiliated with SCA.
I knew
I
I'd
was
like you.
introduced to Steel, and there is no going back. I know nothing else.
Miranda, you've
That's all
just
there
won
is.
my heart over. But so this is even better. So someone that really doesn't come from any sort of combat background, which do you prefer, like from a spectator point, the melees or the singles?
That's a really hard one because as a new spectator, when I was introduced to it, it was the polearm that I was just like,
Okay.
oh my God, that's amazing. I want to see more of that. There were sparks. It was so loud. And I got goosebumps. It was amazing. But it was also, that was a very small chapter match. I don't think we even really had melee. So that was kind of my first introduction was singles, and I love it. Sword and Shield, while I understand is so very technical, is so very boring to watch. And when I stack my lineup and I schedule the tournament the day of the singles, we get the Sword and Shield out of the way first. We have the least amount of spectators
Right.
at the very beginning of the tournament. I love longsword. I love full arm.
Okay.
But melees are just guttural, sanctioned, brutal life. There's no other way to put it. More violence.
Yeah. Pole arm and melee if you want blood.
And
You got it.
From a spectator standpoint, somebody that hasn't been involved in the league for 2.5 years, coming from trying to put myself back in the newbie position.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right. Okay.
It's the group fights.
So, and on the topic of melees, because I think registration's kind of a little thin right now, but we all kind of know, especially with this being a qualifier for Ukraine, I think that we're going to see a good turnout. So, just going based off that, I'll start with you, Ringo. Is there anyone that you have like early predictions who you think might be taking it home?
Well, how about I give you guys
For the
regions
melees.
represented that are registered thus far, and then that gives you a little.
That sounds like a great idea.
I know it's not coming from my region, but I don't know anything else.
Let's say your non-biased executioner opinion.
Yeah.
Well, we do have 6 coming from the Northeast, so we have that. But there are 6 regions represented based on registration right now. We have 5 coming from Atlantic. We have 8 in the Deep South, which that whole region is kind of in flux right now. Deep South, Southeast Direwolves, which is also still part of the Midwest because they're under the same regional commander. Ricky Rayom is that regional that's handling it. It's in flux. There's still a lot of building and line drawing that's going to be changed. Michael Johnson's got 2 Plains guys coming. Again, with the Midwest has 3, but they're part of the Deep South, so that makes them 11. New England, I've got 6, and from the Toal Thunder, I've got 13.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah. They're not messing around, these guys. I've got 6 Tulsa Tyrants and 7 Dallas Marshals.
All right. Well, I'm gonna call it over an early toll take.
And I'll wait to gush on them until we kind of talk about World Cup, but talk about a team that impressed.
Yeah, that kind of came out.
I have to say, we had a chapter match. We did the boot camp. There was boot camp that was held in Tulsa.
Oh, right.
6 weeks or so ago, maybe 2 months ago, and Jay and Kat and Andre and Simon and Bill all came out and held this really great training. And then we held a chapter match, and Tulsa showed up, and they've been putting in some work.
Yeah, good on them. Talk about a team that really kind of came from nowhere, and like they between them and the Iron Horde, they stole the show. You got your usual suspects, the Executioners, First Swords, the Grizzlies, but they. Sorry, you got something there. As he dusts his shoulders off.
There's no Pacific attending Eastern Conference. They are registered for Western Conference, but we've got no West Coast headed to Memphis.
Especially right after New World Cup, that makes sense.
Trip. They really had a great turnout for World Cup, so hate to see it, but that's how it goes. So that's what we got for Eastern Conference. If you haven't signed up already, you haven't registered, please register. The deadline, by the time this gets uploaded, your window's pretty much closed. So you better, you can go ahead and pause this.
I try really, really hard to figure out my brackets and my lineup before I get on the plane, but inevitably it changes the morning of, and I have to do fancy footwork anyway. So
you laugh, but it's another year until you show up off the plane and you're not in Miranda's book. She says, "Tough shit, get back on the plane."
You can go stand in the walk-on line.
Yeah. All right. So that's Eastern Conference. Everyone's excited for that. Going to be in Tennessee, November 9th and 10th. Hit up your local chapter heads, region heads to hear more about it and register. Come on out. It's going to be a great time. From there, I want to pivot into a bit of news that came out of the steel fighting community. There's been a lot of talk about authenticity versus safety. So on that note, some changes with some leagues that came about. Just to highlight a few, there's been some Griffin helms. It's a lot of the stylistic. They're save the Griffin. There's a lot of changes with
Hashtag city.
that. But one of the things also is eye bars. They have to be on the inside and not the outside. There's also some work with scale aventails. They're starting to put a crackdown on those, and just a lot of kind of I'm sure Miranda can probably attest to this. It's minute to anyone that really doesn't really have a keen eye for it. Even Ringo, how long have you been doing steel fighting?
Steel's about 5 years. I've been fighting, but like seven
Right.
historically fighting shit.
Right. So, I want to kind of bring this into a conversation, especially as our league's growing. We have fighters coming from all different disciplines, whether they be military, SCA, people who just straight up love it, MMA guys. And
So,
I'll start with you on this, Ringo. Where do you see the restrictions for authenticity? I know in the ACL, it's and that's why the ACL is so great. It's centered around safety, but where do you see authenticity really starting to creep in and really start to become an inhibiting factor going forward as we start to expand?
um, I, I that's a job. First off, I want to just make it clear this is not this these issues we're talking about didn't happen in the ACL.
Yes.
It's a Euro league primarily,
Yes.
um, and they sort of dropped this news that they're banning a bunch of stuff that are very popular throughout a bunch of other countries and even here. And so there was kind of an uproar about it. Personally, I think it's bullshit. I know some people are all about the historicity. I think whatever, as long as it looks kind of medieval, you're good to go. I will go showing up in fucking World of Warcraft armor as long as it's safe. But that's just me. I think as the sport continues, we're gonna see my viewpoint become more of the mainstream. Just because people won't be able to tell, like you said, a lot of people don't know the difference between an actual bassinet and one that's got like a weird shape to it, or like didn't come down enough, or whether it's got a scale aventail. Like people can't tell if you're wearing 13th century mixed with 15th century unless you're a historian, and I don't think people are going to care watching it, but and I don't think most people care playing. Uh,
Mm.
but I think it holds us back as a sport. I think if we want to be a modern sport, we should be modern. We should think about modern safety concerns. Yes, we should still use armor because armor is cool as shit, but that doesn't mean that you need to be wearing something off of an effigy, picture perfect. Um, One thing though, I just created a survey that we should probably share with this.
Yes. Yes.
that I put out to the league, asked about what they care about, and one of the things I asked was how they care about the um, if being historically accurate was important to them,
Right.
and I was really surprised. It's about 50-50 split on whether people care.
Oh, really?
Yeah, on
That's
whether
what
they
I
care.
was going to say. It's probably pretty split down the middle. Of at
So,
least those that were surveyed that are current ACL members. It's
yeah,
not out to the general public at this point, but
right.
Right.
So So I gave them two no opinions on if it was a thing. Like, either you don't give a shit about it or you think it's a problem. And like 15% of the people found it to be a problem, but way more people were like, yeah, it's really awesome that we have very historically accurate um, stuff. And like some people even left comments about how they uh, found seeing people wearing athletic tights as opposed to historical tights or historical
Really?
underwear was a problem. And yeah, so
Wow.
some people like that's the thing that really gets them into this, which is, I mean, if that's what it is, that's
Yeah.
cool. There are other groups that do way better. Like if you're not
Mhm.
hand sewing your stuff, um, then you aren't allowed.
Right.
And that's where I see, if you love history, that's where you'll go. I mean, like we all love history a little bit, but like for us, I think it's mostly about the fighting and swords and shit.
Yes.
And it's about the sport itself.
Yes.
While historical and medieval and likened to 13th century tournament, it's still, I mean, modern day. It's not like you're digging up 13th century
Yep.
steel to put on. You
Yeah.
have to recreate it.
I mean,
in order to be
in between
safe.
rounds, I'm not going to the outhouse. I'm going to go take a shit in the toilet. Like,
Please,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
no. I have enough shit to clean up after you guys. Let's not make it literal. Okay?
Look, I may or may not have seen a quote somewhere from one of our own that says, "Shitting your pants is period as hell."
Shitting your pants.
Oh, well,
I
their
mean-
list squire or their team squire can clean that shit up because it ain't gonna be me.
Okay.
Well, now I'm not even going to national events. This is horseshit.
Yeah, especially when we have where we have DJs playing at the event. And we allow titanium now. The other groups have allowed
That's
it for a
true.
while, and it's like, yeah, you're fucking harping on these minute historical.
Where is that line? What? Yeah,
Yeah.
where is the line that this is for sport
Right.
and in the 21st century?
Yeah.
My view on it is we aren't doing historical reenactment. We are reviving a sport.
Yes.
We're taking a sport that did exist, and we want to do it now.
Yes.
And to me, that's what it should be all about.
Yeah.
So,
Golf claps.
Yes,
Go golf
bravo,
claps.
bravo! I concur. I concur.
Oh,
and on that, the other thing I want to add on that, like, and
Mhm.
especially when it comes down to safety, like
Yes.
one of the things that we added that is not period is much stricter protection over the eyes, which I have a personal thing for.
Concussion padding. Hello.
yeah.
Concussion padding is
Hello.
required.
Like that's required. They didn't have that back then.
I mean, like, Ian is in the sport. You gotta.
One of the things that I appreciate about the ACL so much is their strict adherence to being safe.
Yeah.
The whole thing with the eye bars on the inside, I'm like,
Yeah.
are you crazy?
There are helms I've seen that Euros use where like their oculars are like 5 or 6
Yeah.
inches in diameter. Basically, their whole face is just visible. And it's crazy. I've taken multiple, even with our restricted things, I've taken Keons to the eye multiple times.
With one
Mhm.
square inch. I mean,
Yeah,
and it's
Yeah.
not like, okay, so there's no thrusting, and okay, so that these halberds and these pole arms, they all have large tips. Doesn't mean the shit doesn't break. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that your actual wooden pole isn't going to snap and there's a sliver that goes flying.
And I mean, just
Also-
last year at the New Year's Bash, I remember good fighter
yeah.
CJ. They just
CJ
went down in a tussle.
landed on a fucking on a Keon, and his eye was fucked up for a
Oh,
while.
yeah.
And there's this video of an event in Russia. This guy's got a GoPro on, and he's
Mhm.
running around,
Classic.
and his buddy puts his pole arm back, and he runs into it, and then you just see the blood gushing. You don't see what happened, but it wasn't a thrust. It was
Yep.
just a pole arm happened to be at the wrong angle.
Yeah.
This shit happens, and like
Yeah.
there are
Even
people out there.
unintentionally. It's a violent sport.
Yeah.
Shit happens. Why won't you do all the extra measures to
Right.
safeguard?
Exactly. Like one of the things I love about our sport is that for the most part, when you go out there, you're gonna walk out okay. But it is dangerous as fuck, and
Right.
there is always that chance that you walk out really not okay, or you don't walk out. And everything we can do to take that down, I like to a certain level. Like if we obviously got rid of metal swords, I'd be like, well, we're not doing the
Yeah.
thing. This isn't real anymore. But
Right.
like,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but like at a certain level, you want to make it you want to make it as safe. People want to
Yeah.
go home at night.
So
So
on the topic of authenticity, because I've seen some groups start to implement it, and it leads me to think, okay, how far can this go with people still being interested? So first off, I know the Iron Horde, I love them for it, but they have numbers on the back of their tabard. Some see it as
I'm
too modern. I personally think it's a nice touch. It makes it because people change helms so often, it's hard to keep it identifiable. I semi like it, but then it leads me to think, what if we go full tilt with the MMA and start having sponsors where like you can start having Papa John's like right on the back?
so
that
I'm
that makes me cringe.
Yeah.
I know
That
everyone
makes
else.
me cringe.
Everyone else says that. Like I personally, if Pepsi wanted me to fucking slap a sticker on my helm, you fucking got it.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyone who I don't give a fuck. I will put
Like, it's gonna look
anything
like the
all
Indy
over it,
500.
and
These,
I
like,
will love
racing
it,
costumes.
and it will be amazing.
I will be
And
that
it will
guy.
be, and also it will be period as fuck. If you look at some historical like coat of arms, they have 1,000 different arms in there from all the families that they can trace back. It's ridiculous. So it's
Exactly.
period as fuck. I love it. We should do it.
To quote
Um,
to quote the late great Ricky Bobby, I got this Fig Newton sticker on my windshield, but I do love Fig Newtons. You better believe I'm
Well,
gonna do that if
okay.
they do that.
While
so
I'm not a fan, I will say at New World Cup, it made my life a hell of a lot easier knowing who was on the field with the Iron Horde. I could just be like, oh, okay, that's
yeah,
there's number 4, there's number 7, there's number
one of the things I've heard people hate about the Iron Horde thing is that it's so blatantly modern because
yeah.
they could have done like Roman numerals. They could have done it in like a Gothic script.
Or maybe just
Okay.
down at the bottom hem. It
Yeah,
doesn't have to be like
they went and also just from an aesthetics standpoint, I've been told obviously I'm not the man to ask about aesthetics. I have my moniker for a reason, but that apparently just looks shitty. Apparently they just use a shitty font. The
Right.
white looks terrible on gray. But like I'm a fan of numbers, or like people have talked about personal heraldry, and that's not the route I'd go, but whatever works. Just something that people can distinguish who's on the field is definitely the way to go.
Right. Right. Yeah, I definitely agree.
Personally.
Yeah. Yeah. So pivoting onto that, it's going to be a discussion that happens for a while. Feel free, bring it up with, your region head, chapter head, get the discussion going, just so we can see where everyone's at. It's a league of growth, so just because it's not implemented doesn't mean you can't think about it. So think it over and, form your own opinion and let us know. But pivoting onto that, we've already started to talk about it before, but I think it's about time we run down New World Cup because if you're new to the ACL and you haven't been to New World Cup yet, if there's 2 events, go to all your region, get all the helmet time you can. But it's not Havasu anymore. But Western Nationals and New World Cup are probably 2 of the funnest events you'll ever do in
Spring
ACL.
Nationals.
Spring.
National.
Spring.
You'll get it.
Nationals.
You'll get it.
Ah, excuse
Western
me.
Conference.
One of these days I won't drink before work. But anyway.
No, that is not true.
Our national level tournaments, our fall nationals is New World Cup held in October in the Philadelphia area. Our spring nationals tends to be in the western part of the United States. Past couple of years it's been held at Havasu, no longer. We'll be at FitCon in Salt Lake City in April.
And that's why she's the best at this. All right, so anyway, New World Cup. Let's talk about it. First off, let's run it down who won. Once again, gold medal goes the Executioners. One of these days, the first swords will beat them. But moving right along.
Not happening.
To each his own. But in second place, the Grizzlies from the Pacific, bringing it
West
home.
Coast, baby.
Yeah, it was that. It was they. It was my own team. I'd like to say that I was a huge contributor for them bringing home the silver.
Of course you were.
But really, I didn't do shit. Those are great guys. But Lance has got a great team.
We got a couple of new guys. There's that one Cousteau, Christopher. He's that
Right.
big giant 19-year-old beast.
Crush.
He was, he was impressive. Just his size alone, wearing that Mongol armor, he was a monster out there.
And then you have Jake, and you have Jake Deathridge and Brad Blackman are both veterans. They fought in Scotland, and they're brutal.
And which one of them? I'm having trouble remembering which one it was. Who was the one that actually bent a falchion on a two-handed strike? I can't remember. If you remember.
Like a two-handed falchion? That's got to be Jake.
Yeah, I think that was Jake.
Yeah.
Brad's the one who took the taser up the ass.
And
oh yeah. On the field, it's the only time we had anything somewhat modern.
This is the World Cup.
Mid-melee, someone broke out a taser and just went straight up the pooper. It was a sight to see. I don't recommend it.
There's video if you look for it.
Oh.
It's available.
Brad's the full Gothic plate who uses the Bardiche.
Yep, yes.
As opposed to Tesla, who uses the full Gothic plate with a little axe.
Right. Yep.
Jason Perda and Brad Blackman both have the full Gothic, along with Chris Minard, who was not there because they just had a baby.
So I didn't mix him up. The other two, constantly, I'm like, I don't know who I'm fighting.
Jason Puerta and Brad Blackman. They have their armor looks so similar, and they're very close in size and stature. I think Jason's just a couple inches taller. But if they're not standing next to each other, you have no idea who they are. And they use that to their advantage.
Right. Yeah, it was a very impressive team they put out there. And, congrats. They earned that silver through and through. I wasn't there Friday, but I've seen the video, and they've just completely demolishing. And, of course, the bronze, first swords, every year, they're near the top. If not, if the executioners don't show up, sometimes they are on top.
Second swords.
Somewhere I hear Andrew screaming, so.
I'm sure he is.
And of course, all the teams that came out, those were the top three. But really, there was no weak team. Every team really, every match, I didn't know who was going to win, who's going to lose. It was
Thunder came in fourth, right? And it was a tough fight for that position.
Yes, it was.
They also. I just went back over the brackets. They pulled themselves out of like every losing bracket to get there.
Yes.
So like they had not only did they make it, they fought the most out of any team, and they crawled their way back up to get there through a hard road. So so mad props to them. Especially this is their second time going to a national tournament. They were at Havasu last year, but they only had 3 fighters who were actually from the region, one of which who didn't show up this year, Austin, who might be their best fighter. It's either him or Cole, but Cole hasn't shown up in 3 years, so who fucking knows?
Well, Cole's out there fighting. He's fighting locally. He's not traveling as much and going to the larger tournaments. But...
Yeah, he's apparently having a bunch of money issues, which we can all fucking... Yeah, we all know about that. It's
I want to say that, he's going to be at Eastern.
Is he? Of course he is. Of course he goes to the event I'm not coming to. I see how it is, Cole.
Are you coming to Western?
I am coming to Western. He'll find a way to not be there either in his own hometown.
He lives in Tulsa.
I see you, Cole. Last time I showed up into your town, you didn't show up to practice. You're dodging me. I know what it is. There's a call out. There's a call out right now.
All right, so you heard it here first at Western or at Spring. You were going to see a one-on-one.
No, this is
Western
You're gonna
Conference. conference in Tulsa, November 30th, December 1st.
At the event that Miranda will later tell me about.
You are so fired. No dates for you. No dates for you.
Oh, God, I gotta sober up. But you will see Ringo and Cole fight. One-on-one.
I hope so. Yeah.
All right, so we already said Toll, one of the highlights, one of the teams to look out for. Are there any other teams that really caught some eyes that you kind of weren't expecting and it just really kind of pulled up out of nowhere?
Dallas.
That is Toll. Dallas is Toll. For New World Cup, I mean, the first thirds are always fucking
Right.
beasts. But that I honestly think they were. This was the best first thirds team they've put out. They were. I mean, they took a round from us. Us being the executioners. Which that doesn't sound like much, but we've lost 3 rounds total in 3 New World Cups. So
Yeah.
So that was that like they almost won the second one of the other rounds that they were close to taking. So they that was their best team I think they put out. A lot of the problem there was they weren't they just haven't had enough time together. There's Carl is this new fighter from New York who he'd never been on the team before. Jeff Barnes had never been on the team before. So there's a lot of newbie-ness. Logan just got back after being injured for 2 years.
So good to see him back on the field.
Yeah,
Major props. It's so good to see him back.
I just anytime a fighter takes a serious injury and then they're out for more than 6 months, I always assume they're gonna walk away.
Yeah.
Especially if it happens early in their career, because you spend $2 to $5 grand on armor and then you get hurt, and then you're like, do I really want to come back to this thing?
And for those that don't know Logan's injury, he had a torn ACL and MCL. Yeah. So he it took him about a year and a half, but he's finally fighting again, and it's just glad. And he really hasn't lost that much of a step. I mean,
no,
the rust the rust came off pretty quick.
He came back looking fucking sharp. And the other thing, Grizzlies showed up with they're missing some of their better fighters and still fucking put on a show.
They really did.
That was impressive. That the team is deep enough. I mean, you also showed up to help with that, so Ben. So.
Well,
But yeah, no.
Either be good or fight for a good team.
Because Jake and Brad both didn't fight for the Grizzlies at Havasu. And so they stepped up to fight for them this time, and they fucking held. So West Coast is putting out, like, they're getting deep now, and they're actually putting out, like, more than just one solid line, and that's impressive. So other than that, there were some flashes of brilliance from people. No other team really caught my eye. But, like, Jake always looks good.
Of course.
One of Mikey's boys, I think it might be his Ukrainian, one of his taller guys.
Alexei.
Yeah.
Right.
I think he put up some good fucking shows. The women's fight too. So
right, yes. Shout out to the women. That's
so
really
crazy.
Coming along.
The first day, fucking Brianna, the Queens, which wasn't really the Queens. Brianna, Julie, and they had Erica that day, came out, and they fucking put on a stomp. And then the next day just turned it around, and fucking Marie and Sloan and again Erica, they were backed up by Nikki. They came out, just fucking turned it around on them. So it was interesting to see, like, both teams put out, like, heavy fucking lineups and heavy fucking advantage on different days. So that was cool. It was nice seeing, like, dedicated women's fighting actually getting more of a show place. Yeah.
And I'll say this, I very much like that they kind of went, I think for the most part, there was no woman that wasn't fighting. Right? There was only 6 fighters that were in the tournament. Correct?
6 fighters the first day, 7 the second.
7 second. Okay.
Yeah, they were they were able to get Ashley into armor.
Right.
So
Like
they-
she had like pieces from every single fighter to put herself together to get out there.
Yeah. Shout out
Leg
to her.
here, shoulder there.
Yeah, showed up not expecting to fight, and then I don't know, she must have got a lot of good charisma checks because she just she got armor out of nowhere and really looked good out on the field. So, you know, huge props to her. Overall, it was a great event, even better after party. Thank you, Brad.
Brad's butthole did some great
Oh, just don't. People are gonna learn when Cat says he's got a taser, he will tase you.
things.
Well, okay. In all fairness, Brad volunteered, so it's
Yeah.
not like
Fair.
Kat went after him with a
He was
taser. Brad was like,
excited,
"Here, put this on my
Yeah.
asshole."
Oh, it's yeah. Even if you don't fight, just come for the after party. It's. But with that, I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the first episode of the List Report. The goal for this is we're going to try and get anywhere from highlighted fighters. We're going to try and get once the ACL show with the show on History Channel. We're going to try and get some fighters from the show, have them on the podcast, start talking to them about their performance on the show. Definitely a lot of region heads. We want to get them to highlight their regions, tell us some things to get excited about. So when we go to these national tournaments, we already got some names to keep in mind. So with that, since I've already butchered enough of the names, Miranda, you want to run down some of the fights that we should be getting excited about, looking forward?
Yes. Thank you. Don't you say a word. We've got Eastern Conference coming up as discussed. That is next weekend. November 10th is the qualifying fights. That's Saturday the 10th. Then after that, we do have a Western Regional up in Sacramento, November 18th. I don't know how much of a showing. I've got to get that registration out. The Western Conference in Tulsa, which is our next large qualifying event, is just November 30th and December 1st. There will be 2 days of fighting, Friday and Saturday. We've got a meet and greet beforehand, a big after party afterwards. Then we have our singles nationals competition, which will be in Houston. That's in January, the first week of January. I believe it's the 5th. It's 1 day of fighting. That's where your regional winners from Eastern and Western Conference, as well as we did not fight singles in New World Cup. Your regional winners from Eastern and Western will compete at the national level in Houston in January. And then our large national event is our Spring Nationals at FitCon in Salt Lake City, April 12th and 13th.
Okay, I appreciate Miranda. So that'll be it for the List Report. I want to thank everyone for tuning in. You can expect these weekly. We'll try and keep you updated on everything to do with the ACL. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.